we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Come along and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle here with you as always, brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. 0% sales have been going on right now. You can get 0% APR financing for your favorite Honda. That's never happened. Honda doesn't do that, but they're giving you an early Christmas present or a late Christmas present, either way. AndyMooreHonda.com gives you more to your door. Hey, French Lake Resort Casino is open for business. West Baden Hotel, French Lake Hotel. You got the spas, the casino. Lots of stuff coming up. Ooh, the Super Bowl's on Sunday. Be a great place to be. Welcome in. How's everybody doing? I hope you're having a toasty day because it's a little chilly out there. Waiting on Dylan Sin to join us here. I need to get to Trevor, send that link, resend the link to Dylan. He didn't get it. But we got a big day coming up. Let's see. Of course, Kyle Neddinriep will join us in the Indianapolis Star. And later, going to really blow it out. Dan Dockich, old friend Dan, is going to join us. He was on the call for the game last night. The Indiana-Illinois game. Of course, that game did not go Indiana's way, but, man, it sure was – I don't know if it was a fun one to watch, but it was a close one. Indiana takes Illinois to overtime, losing 75-71. So we'll obviously be talking about that and lots more. I can't wait to get Kyle Neddinriep on here from the Indy Star. There was a decision that came down by a court yesterday that basically just ripped the IHSA to shreds in their decision. You know, it used all the legal jargon, capricious and whatever else, but just lots and lots of and I wish Todd was on here because Todd Leary, he's got an opinion on it, but he's got an experience with it. But there's been so many people do that, and unless you have the resources to go to court, you get screwed. And they have a little. Sometimes it's a little NCAA-ish. I guess they're always trying to do the right thing. I would imagine, but. We don't know. But we'll see. Waiting to get Dylan on here. So, Trevor, you can get that sent over to him. Looking forward to talking to him. Chris Denari from the Pacers, got to get him on. I'm not sure if we're going to get if we can get Chris on today or not because Dan coming on. But, man, I had a lot of people commenting. I saw a lot of people commenting on Twitter last night during the game with Dan's call, and I'm like, I don't know what they're saying because I couldn't hear him. I'm at the game, but you know, in the post game show, Todd, he didn't. Todd thought that he called a good game. So hey, you can hit us up on the text line 812-269-6367, the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Let us know what your thoughts are. Get over to there right now. One's in from Tim. Jerome Hunter. He wasn't dressing. Jerome Hunter, that's another subject, listed as a coach's decision. And a lot of rumors out there what that coach's decision was all about. So basically, Archie gives a statement that it's a coach's decision, and that's about it. Well, let's see if it's – and he said, well, until he does whatever he needs to do, that decision is going to be. Let me predict that the suspension is 3 games, and we'll see if that turns out to be the case. But I'm not going to get into the rumors. Go to the Hoosier.com. Go to the message boards. There's plenty there on the board. So that's not something I'm going to get into. But just by handling it that way, I think that you can figure out that probably what it is. I don't know. Dylan Sin from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette joining us now. Dylan, how are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you, Jim?
Good. Just talking about Jerome Hunter lightly, saying that if people asking, what's up? I'm like, you know what? There's rumors out there, but if you want to find out, just go to the message boards. You'll be able to figure it out. But I predicted that the suspension will last 3 days, since the 3-day suspension goes along with something. But bad timing for him to do that. Bad timing all the way around. Really immature of someone who's supposed to be a veteran on the team. And that just, to me, it just goes to show, and I don't want to harp on Jerome, because trust me, I guarantee you, I did nothing less worse in college. I promise you, I am not getting on him, but I was not fortunate enough to be given a scholarship and the opportunity to play basketball for Indiana University in season. But I think that goes to the leadership of this team and the lack thereof. There is no leader on this team. And like Don Fisher said the other day on Monday, there's no alpha dog. I mean, yeah, Trace Jackson Davis can throw his dunk down and do all he wants. But where was he for the first 8 minutes of the game? When Kofi Coburn was just scaring the crap out of him. So I just think it goes to the leadership of this team and the lack thereof. But that's my take on that. And I'm not going to stand on a soapbox all day. Like I said, I don't get on. The only thing that would aggravate me about it is it's in season. And good and damn well, you're not going to get away with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it's tough. It's tough for Jerome, and it's tough for the team. They missed him last night, right? That was what Archie said after the game, was obviously they missed him, and they only went 4 for 8 from 3-point range. He's been one of their most consistent 3-point shooters lately, and so outside of anything that he did in terms of why he wasn't out there, it's tough that they didn't have him on the court, because he was the type of player that could have maybe expanded the offense just a little bit, because Archie was talking about after the game that it was very difficult to get good shots on a consistent basis, because Illinois was really pressuring the perimeter, and Jerome probably could have gotten some shots. So it's a tough situation for him, and it's tough timing. And last night they really missed him.
Absolutely. And bad night to miss him, because a game that probably most people didn't think would be close, except for Vegas. And when I saw that, I sent a tweet out. Vegas doesn't do stupid things. And when they had, I'm like, why in the hell is Illinois only a 2-point favorite over Indiana? I could not get it, and I still don't get it. But damn it, they were right. How in the hell? Now that one boggles my mind. Indiana has played like crap for most of the year against big teams, but Illinois is coming in and they nailed it. It didn't turn out to be a 2-point game only because of overtime, but it was basically they were on it. And that's not what I expected. Are teams not getting up for Indiana anymore? I don't know.
Assembly Hall is still a difficult place to play, even without the fans. I think that's part of it. Obviously, it's tough to win on the road in the Big Ten, although Indiana has lost 3 in a row at home, so that's another part of it too. But yeah, Illinois, Indiana has played well in recent weeks against some good teams. Even earlier in the season when they went to Champaign, they led that game in the second half, and it took a huge flurry by Ayo Dosunmu down the stretch to kind of pull away a little bit for Illinois, but Yeah, Indiana can play with these teams. We've seen it all season long. It's just a question of winning the games, and they just haven't been able to get over the hump. And so I guess Vegas is seeing the same thing as everyone else, which is that Indiana's close, but not quite good enough.
Yeah, and actually to be that close last night, the interior, I thought that they were going to get killed on the interior, and as the game started, that's their points was coming from the outside. Al Durham hit some open shots, and I'm like, all right, that's going to be the way. But it turned out Indiana owned the paint. Race Thompson did a yeoman's job where Race Thompson worked his ass off. I mean, he worked hard from the go. Trace Jackson, and this I've seen this as a pattern. It's like Trace Jackson needs several first half minutes to get into the flow of the game, and I think he needs to get his motor started a little early. But anyway, Race Thompson was the glue last night to keeping them in there. He really, really worked hard. Kofi Coburn he's just a presence and a problem, but he's not a gigantic scorer. But man, he just creates issues. But Indiana managed him last night.
Yeah, he had 5 or 6 dunks that like felt like they were really big, but he only had 16 points. It's a good game, obviously, but he wasn't overwhelming. They handled Ayo Dosunmu very well, 10 points and 2 for 11 from the field for him. The defensive performance was pretty good last night. But to your point about Race Thompson, he was terrific. You could tell from the start of the game that he had a high motor. He was engaged, and it was interesting to hear what Archie had to say about him after the game, because he said that he'd been banged up a little bit. You kind of reading between the lines, it seemed like he wasn't quite 100% before that long break, and it took him a while to kind of get back to there. So we'll see whether he's at 100% against Iowa on Sunday, and that's something to keep an eye on as well. But no, he was very, very good, and he kind of carried the team early in the game when Trace was struggling. And it was interesting to see him on the floor with the 4 freshmen, kind of anchoring the floor with them, and they held their own. That was an interesting lineup that we haven't seen before, and it held its own and actually helped Indiana take a lead in that first half.
Yeah, I'll see if we can grab a clip from last night's after the game with Todd Leary. But when those freshmen were on the floor, there was no doubt when you sit right behind me. The intensity, I don't know if it's the intensity is the right word, but the sense of urgency was definitely elevated. And Christian Lander it was the centerpiece of that. We've been begging for him to play all year long, to give him minutes. And Archie is just so stubborn of not breaking his routine he gets into, of not trusting these guys. And you finally give him some trust the last game, and he starts to come through. And you give him more minutes, and he comes through. He's not perfect. He's going to make mistakes. He almost hit Race Thompson in the head with a pass once. But he stayed in there. And even on that, he didn't lose his confidence, because I think he ended up taking a shot on that later in sequence. But you got to leave him in there. He started making some really nice passes. And these were passes that were to guys that were going to score. He's looking to get it to scores, not just to pass the ball, where so many times Indiana is just aimlessly passing the ball to somebody.
Yeah, I think it was great to see him kind of drive to the rim and look to drive and kick, right? And that's something that Indiana doesn't do quite as well as they probably should, right? There was that pass he had in the first half where he drives, he draws the entire defense essentially, and then whips this one-handed pass to the corner to Anthony Leal for a 3. That's one of the best passes by Indiana guard this season. Now, of course, the 3 didn't go in, but yeah, that's the type of playmaking that Indiana needs more of. Now, the problem with Christian is that he is still very undersized on the defensive end. He gets lost a little bit in rotations, and I can see why Archie has been hesitant to put him out there. It's the same reason he's hesitant to put Jordan Geronimo out there, because they just really, at this point, still are struggling to figure out where they're going on defense.
Yeah, but what are you getting from Rob Finney, though?
That Rob Finney has been up and down, and that's true. He had a tough game last night, and it has been baffling this season to see he hasn't been the consistent presence that he was even when he was a freshman. That is really it's tough to see. And I think Christian deserved the minutes he got last night, and he deserved minutes going forward. Yeah.
We got to hit a break here, Dylan. We got to stay online today. We got Dan Dockage coming on. Let's see, Kyle Neddinriep will be on a little later. But let's go ahead and hit to this break. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by the great folks of Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. 0% sales event going on right now. Better get out there and get yours. More to your door, AndyMooreHonda.com. And French Lake Resort Casino open for business, waiting for you. Man, that's a great place to be this weekend for the Super Bowl. We'll be back with more right after this.
Hey, we all want more, and no one gives
you more. Perfect. I got to get some different voices doing commercials, man. Hear my own voice all the time. It's terrible. What was that? I'm getting, it doesn't sound as good, but I'm getting coil lash. Cush lash. That was the favorite. I'm getting cush lash. That is still a good movie. I hate it because it's so sappy, but every time it comes on and start watching it, it's like, it's a good movie.
What movie is that?
Jerry Maguire.
Oh, Jerry Maguire. I forgot about that. Yeah.
I'm getting cush lash.
Hey, Jim, could you send me Dockage's number?
I absolutely can.
And you want him on at 10, right? Isn't that what I heard?
Well, yes, sir. But don't get him at 10 and make him sit for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Get him at like 10:02, and you might want to text him at 9:55 and say, we'll come at you at 10:02. Let's see. Yeah, let me read it over the air to you. It wouldn't surprise me to do something stupid like that one time. Not over the air, but like now. And all right, what am I missing? Man, I can't. All right. I don't want to just talk about the game today, but there's just so much about it to talk about. Oh, and the officiating. Good God.
It wasn't even unfair one way or the other.
It's not inside. It's just
it was just bad. You can't call 54 fouls in a game. Now, I understand early in the game, they were letting everything go. The first 5 minutes of that game, there was about as much contact that was not whistled as I have ever seen. And then they must have looked at each other during a timeout and said, "What are we doing here?" And just completely changed what they were doing. It was the wildest thing I've ever seen.
They need to look at themselves again and say, "What the hell are we doing?"
That was insane. Game took nearly 3 hours to finish.
Just so I don't miss anything, what else happened last night?
Iowa beat Michigan State. Michigan State's 8-6, I think, 8-7.
We're back. The audio. I tried to do the thing that Noah did and it messed the audio up, but we're back.
All right, guys. I guess we're back. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios. Didn't know that. Brought to you by Andy Moore Honda Bloomington and French Lake Resort Casino. Big day today. Kyle Neddinriep will join us in the next segment, and I'm looking forward to talking to him, Dylan, because there was a decision that came down yesterday. Jaden Brewer, I think I forget where he was going, where he went to, but his mom had changed jobs, and it was causing a hardship, just all kinds of things. But it was denied by the IHSA, and it went up through all the channels, denied. But they go to court, and Well, they laid. Need to pull up my tweet from yesterday. The court used a lot of language about toward the IHSA that was none of which was flattering, and it basically showed a iron fist type of attitude. And I'm like, why, man? But I wish Todd Leary was on here because we've had that conversation before. He has experience with it, but a lot of people have experience with it. But yeah, that's kind of will that be a wake up call? But it usually isn't. They'll usually just keep doing that because most people don't have the resources to do that.
Well, that's the thing. It's a bureaucracy, right? And it's a Byzantine one. So a lot of people don't have the resources to kind of figure out what's going on, and the decisions sometimes seem arbitrary. So yeah, you have to wonder whether that'll be a little bit of a wake up call for someone. But extremely interesting story going on here.
Fred Hoiberg said he had got a little scared on his deal. He went through COVID-19. I'm surprised. We thought he had it last spring.
We thought we were watching him get it. We thought we were watching him get it in real time during the Big Ten tournament last year. That was really scary. That is still the most surreal, probably 12 to 24 hours of this entire pandemic. Because I'm not sure, Jim, were you there after the game last year where we were kind of just Illinois Nebraska was quarantined in the locker room after the game because they wouldn't let them go back to the hotel because they were worried that Hoiberg had it and they were worried that he'd given it to the entire team. And so they were just sitting there in the locker room after the game for about an hour. And we were all in the press room just saying, what the heck is happening with Nebraska? What is going on? Because this was the same night the NBA shut down. And it was just and it was the day they announced there was going to be no more fans in the Big Ten tournament before they announced, hey, we're not doing this at all. It was just a 2-hour stretch where basically everything changed in the world of sports. And it's still surreal to think about.
What I remember most is that the next morning when I went to Banker's Life and couldn't get in. They were going to the media entrance. They were already, this was early in the morning, turning people away. And I ended up talking to Rick Pizzo from BTN. But that's it, because it was a beautiful day. I remember that was just a beautiful day, but a really weird day because I remember turning around and there was the Big Ten tournament merchandising trailer just full of stuff except for people.
Huh. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, exactly. It was just surreal. Everything changed in one day.
Hey, you covered the Boilers, man. What a tough loss they took last night. I thought they had that game well in hand. Maryland is somehow able to come back, win that game 61-60. Maryland needed that game desperately because, to me, Maryland and Indiana are fighting for the last spot from the Big Ten to get into the tournament. And Maryland just took a step ahead in that regard, in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, is that they're both kind of in a very similar position on the bubble right now. And yeah, Maryland has 4 wins. They're 4-7 in the Big Ten, but all 4 of their wins are against ranked teams. So of course Indiana has the win head to head against Maryland. But yeah, Maryland has been a giant killer this season, and it's interesting they're able to continue doing this after Jalen Smith left for the NBA, and so did some of their other top players. So they are a young team that's playing with a lot of interchangeable pieces, and they went out and beat Purdue last night, a game that Purdue led almost the entire way. It's kind of the opposite of what's been going on for Purdue in recent weeks, where they've trailed some games most of the way through. They trailed all the way through against Michigan State, won that game. They trailed all the way through against Ohio State and won that game. And then last night they were ahead most of the night, and they lost right at the end when Jaden Ivey committed a foul in the final seconds. So that's a tough loss for Purdue, and it might stall their momentum just a little bit here.
Yeah, Indiana, Maryland fighting for that 9th spot. Officially, Indiana has it because they're a half a game ahead. They have played one game more or less than Maryland, but Maryland's got a winning record overall. That's probably more important. Having a losing conference record in the Big Ten is not going to hurt you this year, unless it's horribly like a 2-10 or something. But no, if you're 2 games under 500 in the conference, that is not going to hurt you as far as the tournament. Your overall record is more important, and Maryland is 10-8. They've got a winning record right now, and from what I remember, their schedule is not that difficult heading out. Yeah, you've got Penn State coming up. Then they've got Ohio State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Rutgers, Michigan State, Northwestern, and Penn State. Maryland's on cruise control, man. They could probably all they have to go is 500 in that schedule.
Yeah, and that's about as the Big Ten is very difficult this year, obviously, but that's about as quote unquote easy as the schedule gets in the Big Ten. Yeah, they have Penn State, they got Nebraska.
There's one ranked team. There's only one ranked team in that. I mean, you can count Minnesota if they bounce in and out of it, but Ohio State is the only team that is going to be ranked for sure in the entire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Their last 8 games. And how the hell is that possible? To play 8 games in the Big Ten and only one of them be a ranked team? That's Las Vegas odds.
Yeah, it's their schedule was clearly extremely front loaded, and they were able to survive a little bit. They picked up the 4 ranked victories, and now they have the back end of the schedule is a little bit easier. So people kind of wrote Maryland off as, oh well, they're going to be at the bottom of the conference this year, and that's not going to be the case. I think they're going to finish probably right in the middle of the pack and maybe go ahead and earn an NCAA tournament bid. So Indiana has some tough games down the stretch here, and they're going to have to turn it on and win some of these games. And that's what makes games like last night so frustrating, because you have to win the games when you have a chance to win them, right? When you play well, you have to find a way to win, because there's going to be games where you don't play well. You don't even have a chance to win in this league because it's so tough. So when you do play well, you have to make those little plays that kind of put you over the top. And there have been so many games this year where Indiana just hasn't made those little plays that can put it over the top. Happened against Rutgers. It happened against Illinois. It happened against Illinois the first time. So that's why those games are so frustrating.
Well, and contrast, look at Indiana's schedule. It is a murderer's row. Of course, up next, number 8, Indiana. Then they travel to Northwestern, which is not a juggernaut, but Northwestern, they've got belief in themselves, and they'll be at home. And they brought the energy here when they came to Assembly Hall, so I'm pretty certain they're going to have the energy there. They're still fighting. They still think they have a chance, and then they'll see Indiana as a wounded animal. So that's not going to be an easy game for Indiana. Then you've got to go to number 7, Ohio State. Then you're back home to Minnesota. That's a game that Indiana definitely has an opportunity to win. Then you got a Michigan State team coming in that has not played all that well, with the exception of they're playing better now. And they usually do play better at this time of year. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them continue to play better under Tom Izzo by the time that rolls around in late February. But then you've got to go to Rutgers. Then you've got that Michigan team coming in that you've not played yet. Then you've got to go to Purdue. And also, do they make up the Michigan State and Michigan games that were canceled? So that's a brutal schedule.
Exactly. And it's all happening within a 33 days. If you go from last night through the end of the season, it's 11 games in 33 days. Almost every single one of those games is tough. And it is going to be a brutal finish. And that's why it would have been so nice for Indiana to get that one last night, get one in your pocket and say, hey, we started this stretch off with the win. We've already got one, and take another huge step toward the NCAA tournament. It's why it's frustrating that they weren't able to get that one done last night. And that's why this game against Iowa on Sunday becomes absolutely massive, because you don't want to fall back to 500 overall. That's just something. It's maybe a psychological thing a little bit, but you don't want to fall back to 500 overall. That's an issue. And so you've already beaten Iowa once. They're going to come in and be prepared to win on the road, and you're going to have to go out and play as well as you did the first time against them. Iowa's coming off a tough game against Michigan State last night. Michigan State gave them all they could handle. So we'll see whether Indiana is able to replicate the success from their first time out in Iowa City.
Are these teams just getting a little tired right now? I mean, Indiana handled Iowa in Iowa City, which to say that is just mind-boggling, but they did. And, a couple of years ago when they had that weird deal where they beat Michigan State twice when they had no reason to beat Michigan State twice. It's just a deal where they just happened to play well in those games. This could be the same thing. I don't know. But But Iowa needs to get, for their own psyche, for their tournament run, it's about to come up. They've got to get things turned around, and I know Fran McCaffrey knows that. So it's going to be interesting to see which team shows up. But you're not going to get Iowa to go 11 minutes without a field goal again, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. That was a virtuoso defensive performance, kind of a once in a season defensive performance, even from a team that is a good defensive team most of the time, like Indiana is. Iowa's just too good to hold them down for that long. Now, what you can do is score on Iowa, and we saw Michigan State, not a particularly good offensive team, score on Iowa last night. And so Indiana, if they can hit a few shots from the outside, if they can get Trace going inside, they could win a shootout with some decent defense. But that they're going to have to get going again on the offensive end, which we saw at the end of the game last night. You just go on these droughts, and offense is scarce.
Absolutely. I'm trying to see if we can get Archie's statement from last night pulled up, but I didn't hear it. You were in there because I was doing the post-game show. What was his response basically?
Well, basically, he said he was frustrated by the loss, not frustrated by his team's performance. But what he said, the bottom line from him was that they're not.
I think we got it right here. Not to interrupt you. Go ahead and play it, Trevor.
Frustrating game for us. Outcome, I should say. Frustrating outcome. Very hard-fought game. Illinois is a terrific team. Stepped up, made some real big plays, winning plays. I thought Andre Curbelo really showed the type of player, the guts that he has as a young player, especially late in overtime and whatnot, the way he handled the ball, the way he created. He made things easy, and he was tough to keep out of the paint there. Trent Frazier really stepped up in that one segment of the game when it could have went either way. He banged a couple threes and got 3 free throws out of it in that one stretch, and I thought that was a really important, run for them to be able to get back in. Our guys competed. We're not tough enough to finish games off. We just we're not tough enough in little plays, loose balls, hits your hands that can't get it.
There you go. Good enough. There's Archie Miller talking about last night, talking about not being tough enough. And, that brings up, we got to hit a break, but that just keeps bringing up one word that just keeps popping into my head when it comes to this team: identity. And when I think of identity, I think of teams. I played sports. I talk to guys that played sports at a much higher level all the time. But your teams, not even individual, but teams generally always reflect their coaches' personalities. If you're a Bob Knight team, they're going to be tough nosed. Frank Martin, those teams are tough nosed, smart. It doesn't matter what it is. This team has zero identity and zero personality, but there's a reason for that. We got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. Kyle Neddinriep from Indy Star is going to join us next. We're back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Andy Moore and French Lake Resort right after this.
Welcome to your extraordinary destination.
Ooh. What's up? That was a good out. Did you get the link over to Kyle?
Yeah, he should have it, unless there's something wrong with my email. Because, Dylan, you didn't get either of the emails I sent you, right?
I did not know.
But I've also not emailed you before, so
Yeah.
you know how that goes. I've emailed Kyle before.
Why did he not get the email? How did he end up getting it?
I DM'd him on Twitter the link.
Are your DMs open?
Mine are.
So are mine. I don't understand anybody in the media that doesn't. It drives me nuts because so many times I'd like to reach somebody and I can't because they don't follow me. And I'm like,
Exactly.
You're flipping DMs, you jackass.
Well, the whole point of media is like you want people to reach out to you when they have like tips and things like that.
I mean, if I don't like it, I delete it. He got it. Just checking. New producer. Did Did you see that Jaden Brewer thing?
I had not. I just looked it up when you mentioned it. But I mean, what is going on with that?
They sounded like they had a legit reason to me, but I didn't read all the stuff. But
right, like, yeah. I mean, of course, the IHSAA is probably in the wrong because they're usually in the wrong, right? Like,
well, they got lambasted.
yes.
I mean, they got their ass kicked in that lawsuit. The judge just pulled their pants down and whipped their ass.
Yes. They restricted him to junior varsity games after his transfer from Avon to Ben Davis this summer.
Well, that they had to get to that point.
Yes. The IHSA originally ruled Brewer ineligible in October, citing evidence of
Boy, no one gives you more for less than Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. And right now, Andy Moore Honda is having their first ever 0% sales event. That's right. You get 0% APR financing on a brand new Honda from Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer, Andy Moore Honda. Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, where more means more. More selection, more savings.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you here on this Wednesday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Waiting for Kyle Neddinriep to jump on with us. Looking forward to talking to him about the decision that came down by a judge. I think it was Jaden Brewer.
Jaden Brewer going from Avon to Ben Davis.
Avon, if you're, I know a lot of people listening all over the place. Avon is just west of Indianapolis. It's outside. Is that outside of Marion County?
I think so. I don't know. You would know Indianapolis better than me.
Well, Kyle would know. Kyle Neddinriep joins us now. Kyle, we're just talking about the Jaden Brewer decision that came down against the IHSA, and we're talking. He was going to Avon, which is west of Indianapolis. Is that outside of Marion County?
Avon?
Yeah.
Yeah, Avon's Hendricks County.
That's what I thought. It was over by Danville and all that. So transferred into Indianapolis, but IHSA ruled it was for athletic reasons, and he went through all the channels and kept losing. But the judge basically scolded the IHSA.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he pulled their pants down and just whipped their behind.
Yeah, there's a little more to it as well, and I'm going to hopefully dig into that here in the next day or so. But yeah, he, and it's a lot of the things that you hear, when transfers happen, and parents are, wondering why the IHSA makes certain decisions on some cases, and doesn't look into others at times, and there's always a lot of confusion about transfers here in Indiana because there is a lot of gray area in defense of the IHSA that most kids do get eligible, and I think there's there's probably a perception that, a lot of kids don't get eligible. Well, I would, I'd have to look at the numbers. I can't say for sure what the numbers are, but the large majority of kids who transfer get immediate eligibility. There's a certain percentage who only get limited, which is you're playing JV, which is what Brewer was playing was JV basketball for the first, 10 or 12 games, which, it's really not conducive to making him a better player, and it's not making the teams he's playing against.
The other teams, was it?
Yeah, it's not really fair. I mean, he's a Division I basketball player, so it's kind of silly. He's putting up 30, 40 points, pretty easily. So, and I think the judge pretty much said that. It's like, hey, this is, there's no evidence here that he transferred for athletic reasons. I'm not going to get into all the background, but, he's from Wayne Township originally. His mom, his dad died many years ago. He was an outstanding basketball player himself in high school. He's an Indiana All-Star at Arlington. And he had two brothers who went to Ben Davis, and Jaden went to Avon from the get-go. He went as a freshman, and in the judge's findings, he said, there was no issue, when the IHSA didn't care when he went to Avon, out of district, and basically said, why do they care when he comes back, and I think there's more to it. Like I said, I'm planning to write a little bit more about this situation here in the next day or so. But the bottom line is, if the judge felt I should say didn't have any evidence of a transfer for athletic reasons, and basically said so. And I think it was a good victory for Jaden Brewer and maybe the whole transfer process in a lot of ways. And him getting eligible to play now, he still missed a large chunk of his season, and the judge felt for not any reason. So, it's a tough thing he had to go through, but now he's eligible, and it totally changes their team, obviously. And he's played 4 games. He did get an injunction a temporary injunction last week. So he was able to play a couple of games already, and then played a couple more last weekend. So, he's good to go now. And, it's interesting, that the judge kind of, like you said, kind of scolded the IHSA over this because, I think a lot of the frustrations that parents have had over the years kind of came through in the judge's message to the IHSA. So interesting happenings in that specific case.
It'd be interesting to see going forward what happens next, because there's, of course, unfortunately, there's going to be somebody that tests it that probably isn't deserving, which will be the first litmus test. But it'll be interesting to see how going forward they handle this. And
I think it's such a gray area. It's like, I can't sit here and tell you that Jaden Brewer didn't transfer for any athletic reasons at all, and right. I don't think they would argue that necessarily either. But the mom had a job change. They live in Wayne Township. There's a lot of reasons why he transferred to Ben Davis other than, just for basketball. But I have to say it's probably part of it, but what, I guess the frustration even on my end, when you try to figure this stuff out, is what percentage of that matters? What are you going to say? Oh, well, he transferred for 20% of the reason. So he's ineligible. It's hard to, it leaves the IHSA open to be, questioned. And I think it also leaves the door open for them to just come after specific cases and kind of make a statement, hey, we can pick out a high profile kid and kind of put our foot down, and, maybe that scares, kids from transferring, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you either that I'm all for, transferring all the time. When one thing goes bad, you're going to go find the grass is greener on the other side right away. I don't think that's conducive either to, but that's a parent decision, I think, in a lot of ways. And Jaden Brewer was at Avon for 3 years. It wasn't like he's been bouncing around from school to school to school. He was there for 3 years and then transferred, and he's there for his senior year. And in a year of a pandemic and everything else going on, I just, it was odd to me that they decided to make him ineligible. Even if Avon didn't sign off on it, it's not, Avon doesn't have the final decision either, so, it's just one of those things where I think in some cases, we went through this with Aaron Gordon several years ago when he went from North Central to Cathedral, and he was declared ineligible. And I think sometimes, and they will argue it's not, but I think the IHSA sometimes says, they kind of pick out a high profile case and make that a kind of a template, of we're going to put our foot down in this case. But it's interesting. It's just, I know a lot of states have specific transfer rules. You have to sit out a semester, and in some ways, I think that would be a lot easier. Just if you had a specific rule that said, all right, if you transfer, this is what happens, instead of kind of making it.
They used to. You had to sit out a year.
Yeah, I mean, and that seems harsh. And like I said, I just say, to their credit, a lot of these kids get eligible right away, and I think that's good. If a kid's been playing JV or he's not what's the difference? If it's not that big a deal, I don't think if he transfers or decides, all right, if I can't play here, then maybe I can play here, and it gives me a chance to play high school sports, whatever the sport is. I don't think most schools have a problem with that if that's what they want to do. Yeah, I mean, So if you say a year ineligible, I mean, that's harsher than what we have now. But I think also picking out specific cases and kind of making them an example also confuses the process, I think, for parents and coaches and everybody. And there's a lot, there's a lot to it. There a lot of these transfers are based on relationships. The IHSA put in the pass link rule a couple of years ago where you can't follow an AAU coach to a high school team. But there's ways around that as well. So it's transfers are a difficult thing. I don't think we'll ever figure out exactly how it needs to be dealt with. But in this specific case, there was a judge who said, "Hey, this is not right," and that's kind of where we're at now.
It's interesting because it parallels the NCAA issues we're having right now, right? The NCAA is trying to determine whether they want to give everyone a blanket transfer, and you can transfer.
Well, they already have.
Without sitting out. Yeah, exactly. So they're trying to figure out the future of transfers and whether they want to change the rules permanently and things like that. And so these are tough issues even for colleges. So it's just something where it's always a bureaucracy. It's a process, and people are going to disagree on how they want to handle these things.
Yeah, the difference in college, I think, Kyle, is that there's just money involved. You got coaches that are making millions of dollars, getting to move wherever the hell they want, and money is being made off of these players. So they're finally been afforded a little bit more latitude where the high school kids are not getting that. Yeah,
and colleges, I think, and you fight a deal too, where it's like, yeah, players should have freedom to go where they want to go. But I think there's also, programs and coaches are like, man, how do I, what do I have to do to keep these guys here? It's just, I understand that perception too. So I don't, I'm not going to sit here and say either that it's just, everybody should be able to go wherever they want to go and not have any penalty. And even though coaches can do that, but, it does make it hard, I think, to build a program, build stability. We've seen a lot of cases where kids go from mid-major, jump to a high major program. And, it really hurts that mid-major program. But I think also, if you're a mid-major, maybe you have to find a different way to build your program, think outside the box. And, what can you do to kind of fight that process? So, but yeah, I agree, Dylan. I think it just is it's a tough situation that I don't know there's any easy answer to it. High school and college are different, obviously, too, but it's the same, some of the same issues, just a different level. And, and like I said, too, these things don't always come up, probably come up less than people think they do, with the, school blocking you to transfer and, the IHSA finding you ineligible. That's or having just a temporary, not temporary, but limited eligibility. It doesn't happen a great deal, but when it does, it becomes a hot button topic, like it has in this Jaden Brewer case.
What's going on now, Kyle? Where are we in the high school season? What's next?
Yeah, the girls are in their sectional week this week. First games were last night, and we're kind of moving on. And the boys' season, it's February, so the city and the county up here are done. And this is always kind of a time where I'm trying to get out to see some different teams I haven't seen before, or write some things I probably won't be able to get to once the sectional tournament starts. So I got a story coming on Miles Colvin from Heritage Christian here in the next few hours. And guys, he's a really good sophomore player. His dad, Roosevelt Colvin, played in college at Purdue and then won a couple Super Bowls with the Patriots. He's from Broad Ripple High School and was a really good basketball player and football player there. And his son, only 15, he won't be 16 until August. So he's having a really good season, getting a lot of Division I interest already. But have some other. Carson Steele committed to Ball State today, so hoping to catch up with him here, in the next couple hours and talk about that decision. And so a lot of basketball going on, but also signing day and not even remotely close to what signing day used to be with the early period. Took all of the drama out of that pretty much, but there are a few things, like I said, like Carson Steele, and some classes are getting wrapped up. and we'll see what kind of. I'm always interested to see what the final rankings are. I've always been a kind of a recruiting nerd, so just kind of seeing what the Big Ten looks like, and some of the other classes around the state too, and see what those final recruiting classes look like.
Yeah, as far as Indiana, I think, Dylan, they only have I don't have it in front of me now. I wrote it down yesterday. They're only signing one guy, a receiver, a 3-star receiver.
Yep.
Malik something.
Malachi Bennett from Alabama. Yeah. I mean, Indiana is in an interesting position with their recruiting class because they only have, I think, 15 commits, something like that, plus some grad transfers, obviously. So it's a small class. But it's actually the highest average rating in their class since the 24/7 era began. So they don't have a whole lot of scholarships open because they had such a young team this year. But what they didn't have in quantity in this class, they made up for in quality with some really, really good players. So it helps to get another receiver, another high-ranked receiver. He's top 500 in the country. So yeah, it's a good signing to kind of close out the class, and their receiving core is going to be really good here going forward with him and with Jaquez Smith out of Atlanta, who's the highest ranked offensive recruit signing in IU history.
Yeah, there's no room at the end, Kyle, because nobody had to leave. Everyone could stay, and most did stay, other than Stevie Scott, Ty Freifogel, and a couple of others. But for the most part, all the high-profile players, and you talk about a loaded team, man, they should be loaded next year. Indiana could be a co-favorite in the Big Ten East, as crazy as that sounds.
Well, and you raise a good point there. It's not only IU, but a lot of even in basketball. These recruiting classes are. It's going to be interesting. This recruiting cycle is going to be a lot different. Even filtering down to the next couple of classes. With this extra year of eligibility, I talk to a lot of kids who say, man, my recruitment just hasn't taken off, because of that. They didn't get to take, just the other day talking to, Micah and Josiah Green, who I wrote about, North Central football players, big kids, probably, would have had a chance to take a lot of visits. They only took one visit to Indiana State and then had a couple more planned, and then the whole thing shut down in March. And they ended up in a good spot at Dartmouth. They're going Ivy League and really like that program. I mean, that's going to set them up for life probably, but they're kids who probably could have been, they were planning to visit Stanford and some other, higher profile programs. And that's just one example. I talked to Greg Jenkins last night from Lawrence Central, basketball player. And, his recruitment should be higher than what it is. I think he's a Division I player. He's going to end up with some good offers, and he already has some good opportunities, but guys like that who are maybe under the radar anyway, their recruitment's really been affected a lot by this pandemic, and not being able to visit, not being able to be seen as much. Coaches are getting out a little bit now to see games, but just definitely not the same after not having a summer of AAU that was a full, like it usually is with the coaches being able to get out. It did change a lot, and then you add on top of that, whole teams are coming back pretty much, with exception here and there. But a lot of these recruiting classes are going to be filled up, and you see kids committing earlier now because if they're going to, I'm going to jump on this offer now because I don't know what's going to happen. So that's kind of a thing that I think we'll see the next 2 or 3 years. It's probably going to be that way. It's it's unfortunate, but it's just like a lot of things in this world, it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the case, man. And just everything is getting a little diluted. But I can't thank you enough. What's coming up next for you this week?
I'm headed out to Lawrence North and Carmel play tomorrow. It's a couple top 5 teams in the area. Carmel's probably going to be missing Brian Waddell, who injured his ankle last week, but hopefully he's back before too long. And then Saturday, I think I'm going to go see Gus Etchison play at Hamilton Heights. He's having a great year. Saturday afternoon game, and and then from there, lots more basketball coming, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, the Fighting Leary's been having a pretty decent season, haven't they?
Who's that?
Carmel. The Fighting Learys, Carmel.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they are. They've only lost one game, and lost to Cathedral in a 1-point game. I covered that one. Cathedral, I thought, played really well, but yeah, Carmel's having a great year. I think Will, I think he had a pretty big game in that one, if I remember right, or one of the games I covered. I think he had 5 or 6 threes. So good to see him playing well.
Absolutely, brother. Appreciate you so much. Kyle Neddinriep from Indy Star. Make sure you follow him and be a subscriber. I am. Kyle, thanks,
have a good one, guys. I appreciate it.
Kyle Neddinriep from Indy Star joining us. Hey, you're listening to the Sports Beat. We've got lots more coming up here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Dan Dockich up next. That's right. Let's get to it. Let's get it on. Back right after this.
Hey, we all want more, and no one gives you more for less than Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
The thing is, Trevor, well, no, he could. Let me text Todd. Damn it. Where are you? You wanna... You probably won't be able to answer me quick enough, unfortunately. Have you ever spoken to Dan Dockich, Dillinson?
I have not. Looking forward to it. What I heard he was before the last play of regulation last night. He was diagramming a play. Before some important play last night, he was trying to diagram what Indiana was going to try to do out of a timeout, and his mic got cut off, and that was a little bit interesting there. So, but yeah, I mean he's one of the smartest basketball dudes out there for sure.
You know what? He does a good job.
Yeah.
I know people get pissed, but that's because fans get pissed, and because anytime it doesn't go their way. Nothing. I don't ever hear anything like I'm like I don't care. Nothing bothers me. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'll have you introduce you to Jim real quick here.
But we're 30 seconds out.
Guys, we have Dan on right now.
Dan, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.
Dylan Sin is on here with us. He's from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. He's sitting in with me today.
Hi, Dan. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
How are things up on the lake, man?
Good, really good.
Play.
Good.
We offer an up-close animal encounter with elephants and giraffes, lodging that is out of this world, world-class golfing, and a premier resort experience that is waiting for you on your next visit to French Lick, West Baden.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Wednesday, brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Save more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. And now the incomparable, our friend Dan Dockich. Dan, thank you so much, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Man, we love having you on as always. Last night you had the game that called on the Indiana-Illinois game, a lot tighter than a lot of people expected. But Indiana, of course, still not able to come out with a win, as has been a problem for them all season.
Yeah, they forgot about Trace Jackson Davis, or Trace Jackson Davis forgot to play, or I don't know, but man, is that a big deal down the stretch, and I'll never understand. I'm going to talk about this today on my show. I'll never understand. And this goes back to when Langford was there. Your best offensive player standing in the corner. I just don't get it. In fact, my broadcast partner, Dave Fleming, and he's texting me actually as we're talking. He goes, "We've seen this before." Indiana's guy standing in the right-hand corner. And I'll never understand it, but it's what the folks at Indiana University wanted. So you get what you want.
Well, and that's another thing. Everyone is you see Hoosier Nation starting to get all upset and this and that and the other thing. But I keep telling people he has 3 years on his contract that are guaranteed. So I don't know that anything's going to change, especially in this COVID year. And that's another thing. These contracts that Fred Glass signed, he did the same thing last time. It made it almost impossible to get out of the Crean contract. And this is another situation. You're looking at 3 more years of having to pay somebody, whether they stay or not.
Well, I never want anybody to get fired. I really don't. I just want Indiana to be good. And I catch so much hell because I try to tell people, and you know, it's really difficult for most people, if not all people, to understand that Big Ten is just different. Like I was telling Seth Greenberg beginning of the year, there's no chance Iowa wins the Big Ten because Iowa always screws it up. And you think about Iowa, well, Indiana came in there and beat them bad. And then they went and had a game that they could have and should have, if you're going to compete for a championship, won at Illinois, and they couldn't get it done. There's just certain things at Indiana, and everybody fights me on it. You know, everybody likes the new resume. This guy went to the Elite Eight. This guy with Dwayne Wade went to the Final Four. That's great. But it's, you know, for a guy like me and other guys that are former players, we just kind of sit there and go, how ridiculous that they don't even consider that maybe somebody from Indiana that played at Indiana that understands the culture of Indiana might do okay there. But it's been 21 years. Indiana's got what they want. Fred Glass got what he wanted. Harry Gonzo got what they wanted. And, you know, for me personally, I just move on to the next game Friday and Saturday this week.
That's one thing that I think that has been readily apparent. This team has zero identity, not a lot of personality. There doesn't seem to be a lot of attachment. The old play for who's on your chest, that kind of has been out the door. And I think that hurts the team because these other teams aren't like that. They are playing for what's on the front of their chest and playing it with a lot of pride. And it just seems like that has not been as apparent.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever seen Trace Jackson Davis point at somebody on a nice assist? Have you ever seen Trace Jackson Davis ever give credit to anybody else? Or have you only seen Trace Jackson Davis make a move, get a basket, and then do whatever facial expression or whatever silly little thing? No, you don't. And that's not what, again, I go back to what the powers to be at Indiana wanted. And what they wanted was what they got. I told Fred Glass when you hired Archie, I said, you're making us exactly like every other school. And you don't see anybody at Indiana, you know, sharing the sugar, as what's his name used to say, as Lavin. You know, Jackson makes a move, you know, he's going to flex, but it's never like, hey, man, great pass. Hey, man, let's all get in here. Hey, man, let's get this done. You never, ever see that. All you see, and when your best player's that way, your team's that way, frankly. I think there's guys probably on that team that would like to be engaged with one another, but when I watch them, all I see is, you know, their best player is so into himself. And that's, you know, that hurts you. That it's hard enough to win games in the Big Ten, particularly.
Well, let's hope he comes back. If not, Trevor, just reach back out to him. I think we lost Dan there for a second, but either he'll call back or you can call him, Trevor, give him a call. The calm Dan dockage this morning. But I guess you got to save that for noon, and I understand that. But I think he has him there. Trevor, you say you do have him?
Stand back.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, that's all right.
I don't know where I lost you, but the bottom line is, if I were sitting there on that bench or as a teammate of Trace Jackson Davis, and I'm watching him be all about himself, it wouldn't change the way I played, but I'd be like, man, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. But again, as I say, that's what Indiana is. And frankly, you can't really name, over the last 20 years, you can't really name a culture. Like, you tell me what Indiana has stood for over the last 22 years. They had some great season with Dane Fife and them, remnants of Coach Knight's deal. But you can't really tell me what Indiana is. It toughness? I don't know. Is it great offense? I don't know. Is it hard-nosed defense? I don't know. But again, as I go back to it, I was in the meeting in 1997 before I left to go to Bowling Green, so it would have been sometime in the fall or spring. It was the last coaches meeting I was ever at. Clarence Donninger got up there and he said, we're going to start de-emphasizing basketball, and they got what they wanted. So there you go.
Which is shocking because basketball has been the bell cow sport. It has been the face, and that's good for a university because you bring in the attention, you bring in the students. Indiana's a world-renowned university. So
he was saying that, and this has turned out to be very true. We don't want a ruler like we had in Bob Knight. We want to. We want to start getting women's sports and football. And on the surface, that's all great. I mean, hey, look, who's going to argue with that? Obviously, nobody is. I mean, that's great. But I remember sitting there going, wow, that's all right. That's cool. Let's see what happens because, that would be like all of a sudden Alabama saying we're going to de-emphasize football in terms of our external. Like you went for years, and maybe you still do, one of the things, and this is so silly, but this is the way it was, no more Indiana basketball players, former and current, are going to be on our alumni magazines. We're going to put whatever, or our varsity club magazines. I mean, just silly stuff that Indiana, and, like I said, it's hard enough to win. And while Indiana's doing that, well, guess what? All these other schools went the other way. Wisconsin went from, and I'm being literal here, I was at Indiana 16 years the first time. We played them twice a year. We were 31-1 against them over the 16 years I was there. Well, Wisconsin changed it.
yeah, he'll come back on. Wisconsin changed coaches, right? Greg Gard to an assistant, didn't miss a beat.
I apologize.
It's all right. Yeah, Wisconsin didn't miss a beat.
No, Wisconsin, look, if you look at the teams in the Big Ten and you say, all right, who's had the most success? Okay, well, lately in the 2000s, Wisconsin has, Michigan State has, Purdue has. I mean, really, there's been, Michigan's been good with John. Yeah, but, over the course of those times, who's been the best? Well, what do they all have in common? Well, they've had continuity in their program from a quote-unquote great coach, Gene Cady. All of a sudden, now you've got Painter. Michigan State, you got Judd. Now you got Izzo. All right, Wisconsin. That all started, frankly, with Dick Bennett. Once they got Van Gundy out of there, they brought in Dick Bennett, and the whole thing changed for them. Well, what did they do with that? Then they went with Bull Ryan. Then they went with Greg Gard. And you go, man. And the reason is this, and this is something, there's not one media person alive could ever understand this, but the reason is the Big Ten is so provincial. The Big Ten is so different in terms of mentality. And Indiana, the administrators haven't figured that. I remember when I talked to Fred Glass, he did all this nonsense trying to involve former players in his decision. And one thing I can do is I can read people pretty well. So Fred's talking, and I'm sitting here, and I said, Fred, you're not going to listen to any of us. You can act like you are. You can say it publicly that you are. And other players are dumb enough to think that you are. Other former players are dumb enough to think that you are. But the truth of the matter is you're not listening. Because I can tell by the way people are. And sure enough, Fred was smarter than us. And here you go.
Well, I was wondering, it kind of came up because he re-upped Tom Crean's contract before he fired him, and then gave one the similar contract, Archie Miller. How much money that has cost Indiana over this last 8-10 years? It's got to be like $40 million with virtually nothing to show for it.
Yeah, I would imagine. I remember when they didn't hire me and they hired Tom, was kind of happy. My daughter was happy. We went on a little vacation, had a great time, and I didn't really pay attention to any of the news. And I came back, and my daughter, I happened to look at what they hired Crean for. And my daughter's like, Dad, I'm so glad you're not a coach anymore. I'm so glad you're not coaching. I go, yeah, really? He's making $23 million. So I'm like, damn. But yeah, Indiana, I never understood. And again, I'm wrong. I will tell you, I was there longer than anybody but Coach Knight. But when you talk to people, I don't know nothing. I'm just little Danny that was, Coach Knight's little guy. I get all that. But I'll tell you this much. If Indiana had any sense of who they are, they would never, ever, ever have to pay a coach that much. And they would operate from a position of strength with coaches, not hoping that some guy that one time in one tournament had a nice run was going to be our savior, and we had to have him, so we had to give him a ton of money. It's just silly to me. I mean, the idea of the way Indiana has run basketball is silly. And in fact, I hate to say it, but it didn't stop this summer. I mean, Billy Donovan's sitting right there. And I remember texting, I don't want anybody to lose their job, but you at least got to explore Billy Donovan, for crying out loud. The dude won 2 national championships, and what's his face? Whatever the AD's name is, Dolson. Just, I'm just little Danny. I remember when I told Indiana to hire Urban Meyer, and Terry Claypax, the vice president, laughed at me. I'm used to getting laughed at by Indiana. It's kind of fun.
Well, Dan, I was going to ask you if you obviously you are familiar with the university, but do you think that it's going to help the basketball program that they hired someone who was a manager for the basketball program under Coach Knight and kind of knows what the basketball program needs to serve?
I don't know. I mean, being a manager, while it's certainly glamorized and people make a big deal about it, I know Doyle wrote an article about all this. That's great, but basically it comes down to who you're going to hire. And I hope Archie does it. I hope Archie gets it figured out. I do. I don't, like I said, I don't want anybody to get fired, but Indiana basketball for me is a lot different than for Isaiah Thomas, who was there 2 years, or Randy Whitman. I mean, it's in my soul. It's in my heart. It's where I grew up. I mean, I went there at 18. I left at 35. I mean, I put up with more garbage and more great stuff than anybody ever, not named Bob Knight. So I have no idea whether, it's a cute media thing. Oh, we got an Indiana manager. It's cute, and it's lazy. It's easy to say, but who knows? I mean, Fred Glass was the ultimate cheerleader. Fred Glass was the ultimate connected Indiana guy, and I would argue that Fred was pretty good for Indiana basketball. But I would also argue Indiana basketball isn't near where it was before people that were involved with Bob Knight, or since Bob Knight is gone. I would argue that Indiana basketball isn't nearly where it was. But again, I hope it straightens out. But having a guy that was a manager, who gives a rap? I mean, I don't know. It's a cute story, I suppose.
And of the people that are out there now, like I think we hear a lot of people talk about Dane Fife, but I think Dane is probably the heir apparent to Tom Izzo.
Let me tell you, if you're going to say to me, like I always hear from guys in the media, well, you got to have a resume. Really? How's that worked out?
Yeah.
Well, what's the resume? Well, Green went to the Final Four. Archie, okay, there's your resume. How's that worked out?
No.
And so these guys say, hey, let me tell you something. Hey, look, hire Nate Oates. I mean, he won 8 games in a row. That's the Indiana way, right? I mean, I don't get into who people should hire when somebody has a job. Archie's the coach. That's cute for you guys, but I don't get into that.
Yeah, me either. What can this team do now? They've got like 8-9 games left, and it's a tough road to hoe. They have no easy games going down the stretch. They had a battle with Illinois last night, but could not get it done. You've got Iowa coming back in, who's probably looking for blood after losing to them the game before last, and they're fighting for their tournament life.
Well, the thing you said at the end is what they have to do. They've got to fight. Like, I went to the Purdue-Indiana game, and my wife, who is one of the, great softball players / coaches in the history of college softball, we're sitting there watching both teams get ready to go to a game or to start the game, and she looks at me, she goes, Dan, Purdue's ready for a fight. Indiana's just here to play. And she couldn't have been more right. So the number one thing is, you know, just because you have the name Indiana or Duke or North Carolina or Kansas on your chest doesn't mean you're a Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Indiana basketball player. Like, I was watching Duke the other day, and Duke's players are like playing Duke. They're like, we're acting like we're Duke players, but we're not diving on the floor. There's not the toughness. Same thing with Michigan State. I did the Michigan State Ohio State game on the radio, and I said it on the air. I go, Michigan State players think they're Michigan State players because they're wearing the uniform. And I felt that as a player. I felt like, man, my senior year, we were horrible, and I feel terrible about that to this day because, frankly, I didn't do enough to make sure we weren't horrible and lived up to Buckner or lived up to Isaiah or lived up to Whitman or Kitchell. And these guys have to decide that this is a fight. This is a fist fight. This is something that we're going to have to take, and we're going to have to do this collectively. And, frankly, when you really watch, like, when I get ready for a game, I watch the last 3 games that each team played, and I watch them 3 ways. I watch them regular speed. First, I watch them without the sound on because I don't want to hear anybody's opinion. I want to make my own opinion. Then I watch all the offense, one after the other. So all of Indiana's offense, then all Indiana's defensive possessions, one after the other. There's the same thing with the opponent. I do it for 3 games. All right. So what certain things stick out to you? And the thing that stuck out to me with Indiana was, damn, they don't play hard. Like, from one end to the other, I could name on, I don't know, one hand maybe the amount of times that guys are in a dead sprint. Like, I can name the amount of times guys are in a dead sprint back on defense, or a dead sprint coming off screens, or a dead sprint running down the offense. And like I said, when you watch enough of it and you do it in the manner that I do it in, one right after the other, it becomes, so certain things become obvious. So the first thing Indiana has to do, Jimmy, is they've got to decide, we're in this for a fight. We're not in this because, you know, you get a stack of fan mail from somebody, or the girl that you wouldn't talk to you in high school now likes you because she sees you on TV, for crying out loud. And that's the first thing. The second thing is, man, you got to get your best players involved. Like, I'm telling you, Armand Franklin standing in the right corner through an entire overtime, that's malpractice. I mean, you know, you went to him to win the game or to tie the game. Who'd they go to? They went to him top of the key, drove it right, laid it in to get the most important part of the game, down to 35 seconds or whatever it was left. They went and did it, and he delivered easy. So now all of a sudden, you know, you're sending it to the right corner. It just, I don't know. It's just it's baffling, truthfully.
That was the Romeo Langford offense from a couple years ago. So that's so well.
Exactly right. You got the best player on your team, and usually what happens is, I mean, you know, with Coach Knight, the best player on your team. In fact, I'm very proud of this. The two all-time league scorers at Bowling Green played for me because they're the best scorers. I mean, they're the guys that are supposed to go get the buckets. Everybody's got a job, so. Yeah, you put Romeo in the corner. It's like a new Indiana tradition. You know, who's the best perimeter scorer? Langford, get in the right corner. Who's the best perimeter scorer? I think right now it's Franklin, get in the right corner. Used to be wearing number 42 was a badge of honor at Indiana. Now it's go stand in the right corner is a badge of honor at Indiana. It's a bit baffling.
I thought it was number 11.
Well, that was just because we made it that way. You know, Isaiah had a little bit of a hand in it, but once Fife myself took it over, it became magic. No question.
Hey,
but it was number 42. I remember when they gave John Flowers number 42 at Indiana when I came in there. I was pissed.
John Flowers, I forgot about him.
Knight and Cruz were liars to me, and I didn't like it.
What's going on with you, man? What's new with you? Besides the show, obviously, every day, 12 to 3 on the Fan in Indianapolis, which you should listen to, as most of us try to do that. What's new with you?
Nothing. I had COVID, so I get to travel. It's like, it's weird, like doing games from home is really bad until the game is over, and then you walk upstairs and you go to bed. Like last night, that was like a 5-hour game. I thought I think they fouled me out in that in that game. So no, I mean, this is, I'm trying to follow Elon. My son's at Elon, and trying not to get fired on the air, and that's about it. That's about it.
Man, the officiating last night was just atrocious all the way around. It's so over officiated.
Oh, like here's something that came to my attention. I was talking to JD Campbell. We were talking about officiating. This is before the game, and I'm like, hey JD, where's Terry Weimer been? Like, Terry Weimer's a great official. I haven't seen him in one Big Ten game, and then he mentioned a couple other guys, and I'm sitting there going, man, I forgot about that guy. Where's that guy been? Where's that? I thought last night's game was as poorly officiated a game as I've seen maybe in the entire 10 years of me doing college basketball. I thought, and I like the officials, like these guys are great guys. But if there was a camera on Dave Fleming and I behind the scenes when these calls were made, I think it would have been, one, probably great theater. Two, we probably would never be allowed to work a basketball game again, because I was throwing things in my like a charge here, a block. Like, stop it. Players out there busting it hard. Whatever you think of your team or whatever you think of your coach, everybody's out there. And, for coaches, their livelihoods are on this thing. And here these guys are, I thought, screwing it up. And, man, I give Archie credit. I give Archie and I give Underwood credit for not getting thrown out. But I don't get this. Now, you guys there's no way you guys would disagree with this. I don't agree with a guy who hits a three, looks at the bench, we got to call technical foul. I mean, honest to God, you don't want robots playing. I mean, we the greatest players in the history of basketball, even guys that aren't the greatest players in the history of basketball, talked a lot of smack. And
Bird was the greatest.
Big old guys in your underwear in a short space. You're going to talk and bump into each other. It drives me blank crazy.
I tweeted out immediately that was a BS technical. It was just crap. You've got to have personality. That's part of the game. Trace Jackson-Davis comes down, he gets a slam and gives them the big mug, and they didn't give him the technical. But oh well, it's all fun and game. Dan, I cannot thank you enough, man. What's coming up today on your show on the Fan? I know you're talking about the game, obviously, but what else you got coming up today at noon?
I'm probably going to pitch a lot, and then I got to talk about the quarterback situation. I got, the Colts, for as much as, people act, we all like Indiana basketball. Frankly, our research shows that people want to hear about the Colts. So between me bitching about Indiana and trying to figure out who the quarterback is, I'll tell you this, it was lively yesterday. People calling me names is great. It'll be the same today, but I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Dan, I can't thank you enough, brother. I appreciate you. Make sure you tune in to Dan today on the Fan at noon, brother. Have a good one. I look forward to doing it again sometime, Dan.
Anytime, man. Thank you. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. There's a great Dan Dockage, friend of the show, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. Always fun. He wasn't too bad. He didn't kill anybody. All good and well, calm. It's early morning Dan. Early morning Dan. He's got to get revved up. He's still got another hour and a half before he lets it roll.
He's got to be excited that he doesn't get fined anymore when he talks about the officials.
That's true. He's undefeated, and you're always undefeated here as well. Man, it was a fun time, fun day. We missed a break there in that second half, but sometimes you gotta let it roll, baby.
Gotta let it roll. That's great radio.
Dylan's going to start coming on Wednesdays now. On Mondays, we're going to start having Charlie Miller, former IU basketball player, on Monday. So do a little switcheroo there, but that lines things out. Looking forward to that. We'll be back tomorrow. Dustin Schutte be with us, and I think Chris Denari, the voice of the Pacers, as well. See what else we can scare up too. So, Dylan, brother, you got to have a great day.
Absolutely. You as well, Jim. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
And I hope the same for everybody else. Please do something nice for somebody. Wear your mask. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.